Hello, my beautiful little muglets. So today we are asking the question, should you pull for Sez? As always, I'll have a poll up there in the top right in the form of a little eye. Click that to either see the results or to vote yourself. I was really excited to do this one because I've had Sez since the very beginning. He was in fact my very first 5-star hero. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the competitive history surrounding Sez. I've talked about it briefly before, but what better time than now when we're talking about his drop rate. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is his very first banner ever. So Sez, here mine is in his current form. I still use him sometimes, not super often, but I'd say it's 90% because I have Judge Kisa now. It's kind of hard to argue that Judge Kisa isn't a better cleaver. So I first want to talk about Sez's skill set. Also, we can talk about his multipliers. Again, the reference sheet will be in the description down below if you want to check it out. These are like hidden multipliers. A team of talented people threw together this. I've referenced it a lot, but I'm not too sure if I'm actually allowed to show it because it's copyrighted, so I'm just referencing it, and if you want to check it out yourself, I'll throw it in the description. So his first skill is a Dark Shadow. This starts out as being a single target attack with a chance to land unhealable, and there's also some HP scaling based on the enemy's lost health. I'll place all the info regarding hidden multipliers in the top right hand corner, but its first multiplier is a solid 1, which is pretty average for a basic attack. It will basically utilize all of his attack power, and then the second multiplier, which is kind of a final multiplier, is 0.95. So typically this is 1, means nothing will really happen to the damage. 0.95 means it'll get a little weaker. So overall, a teeny tiny bit weaker than an average basic attack, but still quite strong. And especially considering he does have HP scaling off of the enemy's lost health, which is 0.2% increased damage per 1% of enemy missing health. So with a half dead enemy, that'll increase by 10% and so on. So overall, a very solid skill, especially considering his passive, which we'll talk about now. So Encroach can proc pretty easily. All you have to do is when you're hitting with basic, get them under 50% health. And if they are already under 50% health, this will also proc. There's also a chance for unhealable here, and this is AoE unhealable, obviously, since Encroach is AoE. This does have a first multiplier of 0.5, meaning it's going to do about half as much damage as basic, but again, it is AoE, so if there are 4 enemies there, you're practically doing twice as much damage with Encroach. Also, its second multiplier is set at 1, so no damage reduction from that either. But his ultimate skill is what is really amazing. It doesn't do anything else except damage. So it starts out as a single target attack with a 1.8 multiplier, which is somewhat average, but if you soul burn it, that jumps up all the way to 3.2, which is incredibly high, even for a soul burned ult. Not only that, but if you use it on someone who doesn't have max HP, you're gonna get even more damage out of it because it has even better HP scaling than the basic attack. If you soul burn it, you get 0.7% more damage per 1% of enemy lost health. That sounds honestly pretty crazy, because if you're going to be hitting someone half dead, that's going to do 35% more damage. And then if you happen to kill the target, which shouldn't be super hard with those great multipliers, if you build him well, he'll do AoE damage to the remaining survivors equivalent to 150% of his attack. So all in all, his skill set is super interesting, super damage based, and quite unique as well. The way I have him built right now isn't super effective for purely arena purposes. For right now, he's more of a farmer, but also kind of like if I need to throw someone in there for Guild War, for example, if someone had died, he's a good replacement. You want as much attack as possible because that's what the splash damage after you kill someone is based on. But to ensure he kills the initial target, you also want him to have some crit chance and crit damage. If you think you can get away with no crit chance, no crit damage, and just plain attack, like building him as much attack as possible to maximize the splash, then that's an option. It's just going to be kind of hard with no criticals, in my opinion and in my experience. As for the artifact, I have him with this one right now because, again, I'm not using him as my main cleaver for now. It's basically just a nice attack buff pretty quickly into the battle since they buffed this, but if you'd use him as your main cleaver, I'd probably go Portrait of the Saviors if you do have it. It is an event artifact, so if you missed it, then that's not going to be much of an option. Alexa's Basket wouldn't be bad if you're the risk taker type, because if it doesn't proc, you might not be able to kill the enemy. Daydream Joker is excellent for Wyvern. So Sez has kind of been through a lot, I should say. When the game first started, he was like one of 3 heroes that you're re-rolling for. If I remember right, Ravi was another one, and there may have been a third. I think Az was telling me he was rerolling for Euphina even though she wasn't in the selective summons, so that took him a while. But yeah, Cez was basically Cool Kids Club. A lot were giving him the crown as the best hero ever, and it stayed that way for a little while. Then there was talk about Cez being outdated, he's not really that good anymore, there are other heroes who are so much cooler than Cez and can do better things. There was some backlash for that because, you know, a lot of people at that point had Cez, you know, they were like, don't bash my character. And I kind of felt the same way. And I was like, I'm going to make him work. And he was kind of that way for a while, just kind of living in the shadows a bit of all these new heroes coming. And then a new strategy popped up using Cez. I'm not totally sure about this, but I believe this was popularized by a different creator, Tinha, if I remember correctly. And this new combo was Auxiliary Lots and Cez. And Cez, equipped with the artifact Windrider, made one of the best and most overpowered combos in the entire game. At that time, it may have been the best, full stop. In fact, the other two spots in the team didn't really matter. Of course, you wanted speed imprints to make sure you go first, but they were pretty much filler spots. You just needed Auxiliary Lots and Cez. And what made that team so awesome is the fact, not only is Auxiliary Lots a mage and he can hold on to Tagahel's Ancient Book, receiving 20 souls at the start of battle, ensuring Cez would have those souls to burn his ult and get that massive 3.2 multiplier we were talking about. But the real magic is in Auxiliary Lots' second skill, Mana Injection. Everything about Mana Injection works completely perfectly with Cez. Not only will Auxiliary Lots boost his attack even further with an increased attack buff, but he'll also increase his combat readiness to 100%, guaranteeing that Cez will attack right away. What that means is you could have made Cez as slow as you want to. He doesn't need speed, he needs only attack, crit chance, and crit damage, nothing else. So because he didn't need speed, he could focus more on those other important stats. And then the last piece of the puzzle is this artifact, Windrider. At its current level of 12, it gave Cez 42% increased attack after he killed the enemy and before the AoE splash happened. That meant his splash damage was astronomically high, more often than not just wiped out the entire team just straight off the bat, if not killing most and hurting the other ones, perhaps tanky ones, severely. So then Cez was back on the spotlight, but lo and behold, Windrider got nerfed into the ground and that extra damage didn't proc until after splash, meaning his splash damage was hit pretty badly, and then he just kind of went back to being Cez. Personally, I still think he's an amazing character paired with ML Lots. He of course doesn't have the same splash potential as he used to have, but I still think it's good, especially if you're not up there in Legends League. So whether you should pull or pass from him basically comes down to a couple questions. Do you have Auxiliary Lots? If not, I would probably pass, because those two just work too well together, and without Auxiliary Lots, I don't know if he's really worth putting the Skystones, bookmarks, and everything into. But I would say if you have Auxiliary Lots and you have the ability to make him decently fast, mine's at 236 right now, which, I mean, he could be quite a bit faster, but I think in most cases it's fast enough, especially if you throw a speed imprint in there. So if you have the gear, you have Aux Lots, and you don't have someone crazy like Judge Kisa or Bloodblade Karen, I'm sure there are a couple other really good cleavers, and if you are cleaving really well and you have no troubles cleaving, then I would say maybe not. Also, Cez can be a really fast farmer too, considering he can do AoE on basic, decently strong AoE as well, considering it's every basic, and then even more AoE on his ult. His ult is a little bit slow though, so if you're fighting weaker enemies, it might just turn it off. So for me, it's not really a yes or no answer. It just kind of more depends on where you're at in the game. For like newer to mid-game players, I'd say he's really good. Ones that don't have like a bunch of natural 5-star Moonlight heroes yet, but you kind of, again, also need Auxiliary Lots to make him really work well in PvP. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Cez and whether you should pull. We can actually do an arena battle or two real quick as well, just to kind of show off Cez. I honestly don't know how well he's going to work because he's not really in his arena gear, but we're going to try it regardless. I don't really want to go for any of those dudes. Let's go ahead and try this one. It's also quite a bit of a cleave team. We're basically just going to replace Judge Kisa with Cez and just hope we're faster. They do have a speed imprint in there, but so do we, so we're basically just relying on the gear we gave Auxiliary Lots to be faster. Auxiliary Lots won't be too much of a threat on defense though, because he just does do his third skill. Oh, he is faster. Third skill can be annoying if it silences all of us though. It kinda did. Well, that was a pretty bad start. Usually when we're slower we die instantly, but we're still actually okay, so we're gonna try and pull this back. I don't know if, yeah, unfortunately Cez doesn't have the attack boost now, so it's not going to be quite as impressive, but we're still going to try. We're going to go after this Aux Lots here. See if we can kill him. We did have to go through a barrier, but we could, and there is some splash. Obviously the splash wasn't as good as it could have been with the attack buff. It wasn't bad though, it killed the Ruzit over there. But we can boost him up again and actually have that attack buff this time. And now we can go after the... Here you can see Encroach in action. You can see it doesn't do quite as much, but... Well, there's only one enemy here, so it wasn't super impressive. Alright, next we're gonna go ahead and try this team, which is a kind of mix of Wall and Cleave. We have Bloodblade Karen in there, but also Crow and Angelica. Thankfully, we are faster. We're of course going to try and kill that Bloodblade Karen. She is the most dangerous and also the most squishy, since of course we can't even attack the other one. So okay, that should absolutely work out for sure. So yeah, 25k, and the splash unfortunately wasn't enough to kill Tenebria back there, and we can't even focus on her because she is hidden. Hopefully this will kill her though, and yes it did. And now as you can see, there's not too much health left on those two either, which is pretty cool. So we can go ahead and take care of Angelica. If Angelica and Crow were more tanky, when it comes back to Cez's turn, he could have actually made them unhealable, so prevented them from being annoying at least. So if there's anywhere unhealable is at least a little bit useful, it's PvP and maybe Golem. But yeah, that'll pretty much do it for today's video. Let me know what you think in those comments down below. Also down there is the like button, which you can hit if you want to. Also, maybe subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. But yeah, that'll do it. Thanks, as always, for watching. And until next time.